Hello everyone, welcome back to Talk Fluent. We're so happy you're here with us today. Whether you're listening while you're driving, taking a walk, relaxing at home, or practicing your English during a break, thanks for spending some time with us. Every episode is designed to help you speak English more naturally, more confidently, and more like the people you hear in real conversations across the United States. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's have some fun learning together.
Hey everyone, it's great to have you back. I don't know about you, but I've noticed that even students who have been learning English for years sometimes get stuck on really small words. And honestly, those tiny grammar words can make a huge difference in how natural your English sounds. The good news is that today's lesson is going to clear up one of the biggest areas of confusion once and for all.
That's so true. I remember talking with one of my friends who speaks English really well. She could explain complicated ideas without any problem, but every now and then she'd stop in the middle of a sentence because she wasn't sure whether to say who, which, that, or whose. She told me, I know these words, but I never know which one feels right. Maybe you've had that same experience. If you have, don't worry, you're definitely not the only one.
Exactly, today's episode is all about learning when to use who, which, that, and whose in everyday English. We'll explain everything in a simple way with lots of real conversations, easy examples, and practical tips that Americans actually use. By the end of this episode, you'll know how to connect ideas more naturally, describe people and things correctly, and avoid some very common grammar mistakes.
And here's something important. We're not going to make this feel like a boring grammar class. Instead, we're going to imagine real-life situations, talking about your friends, your family, your job, your favorite movies, your pets, and even your weekend plans. That's how people really learn a language. When you understand how grammar works in everyday conversations, it becomes much easier to remember.
That's right. We'll also compare formal English with the way people actually speak in daily life here in the United States. Sometimes the grammar book says one thing, but native speakers naturally say something a little different. We'll show you both so you'll know what sounds natural in real conversations.
By the end of today's lesson, you'll be able to choose the correct word without guessing. You'll know when to use who for people, which for things, that for people and things in many situations, and whose to show possession. Even better, you'll learn how these words help you build longer, smoother sentences, instead of speaking in short, disconnected ideas.
Before we jump in, we've got a question for you. Which one gives you the most trouble? Who, which, that, or whose? Or maybe all four? Let us know in the comments because we'd love to hear which one feels the most confusing to you. Your answer might even help another learner who's struggling with the same thing.
And if you're enjoying these podcast-style English lessons, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Talk Fluent, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. We upload lessons that focus on the English people actually use every day, and we're excited to keep learning together with you.
All right, everyone. Now that you're ready, let's start with the basics and make these four little words feel easy and natural.
All right, let's start with the foundation. Before we look at lots of examples, here's one simple idea to remember. Who, which, that, and whose are often called relative words because they connect two ideas into one smoother sentence. Instead of saying two short sentences, you join them together. That's exactly how native English speakers sound more natural in everyday conversations.
Here's the simple formula. Sentence 1 plus relative word plus extra information, or you can think of it like this. Person right arrow who thing or animal which person or thing right arrow that possession right arrow whose. If you remember those four ideas, you're already off to a great start.
Let's begin with who because it's usually the easiest one. We use who when we're talking about a person. For example, the woman who lives next door is a doctor. The woman is a person, so we use who. Here's another one. I met a guy who loves baseball. Again, a guy is a person, so who is the correct choice?
Let's look at a few more examples. My teacher who helped me is amazing. The friend who called yesterday is coming over. I know someone who can fix your computer. The girl who won the contest is my cousin. Can you hear the pattern? Every time we're talking about a person who connects the information naturally.
Now let's move to which. We usually use which for animals, objects, places, or ideas, not people. For example, this is the phone which I bought last week. The movie which we watched was really funny. The restaurant which opened downtown is always busy. Everything we're talking about is a thing, so which works perfectly.
But here's something interesting. In everyday American English, people often replace which with that, especially in conversations. Instead of saying, this is the phone which I bought, you'll often hear, this is the phone that I bought. Both are correct, but that sounds more natural in casual American English.
That's a really important tip. If you're watching American TV shows or talking with native speakers, you'll probably hear that much more often than which in everyday conversation. That doesn't mean which is wrong. It's just a little more common in careful writing or when you want to sound slightly more formal.
So now let's talk about that. Think of that as the flexible word. It can refer to people. The student that asked the question was very polite, and it can also refer to things. The jacket that you're wearing looks great. That's why Americans use it all the time. It's simple, natural, and easy.
Let's compare them. The man who helped me, the man that helped me. Both are correct. Now look at these. The book which I'm reading, the book that I'm reading. Again, both are correct. You'll hear the versions with that much more often in everyday conversations.
Now let's learn the last word, whose. This one shows possession. It tells us that something belongs to someone. For example, I met a woman whose daughter studies in New York. The daughter belongs to the woman. Here's another one. I have a friend whose car is always spotless. The car belongs to the friend. That's exactly why we use whose.
Let's make that even easier. Ask yourself one question. Does something belong to someone? If the answer is yes, whose is probably the word you need. My neighbor whose dog barks every morning. The dog belongs to the neighbor. The teacher whose class I enjoy. The class belongs to the teacher. Simple.
Let's use all four words together. I have a friend who loves cooking. This is the recipe that she gave me. The cookbook which she bought was expensive. She's a chef whose recipes are always delicious. Notice how each word has its own job.
Let's make this personal. Imagine you're introducing your family. My brother who lives in Chicago loves basketball. My sister has a bike that she rides every day. We visited a museum which was really interesting. My parents have neighbors whose garden is beautiful. These are exactly the kinds of sentences you'll use in daily life.
Now I have a question for you. Can you describe someone in your family using who? For example, I have a cousin who. Go ahead and finish the sentence out loud. Now try one with whose. My friend whose. Can you complete it? Speaking out loud is one of the fastest ways to build confidence.
Here's another little challenge. Think about your favorite movie. Can you say the movie that, or the movie which? Now think about your favorite teacher. Can you say the teacher who? Great job. You're already practicing real English instead of just reading grammar rules.
Let's also look at a small variation. Sometimes you'll hear people leave out that or which completely. For example, this is the book I bought yesterday. Instead of this is the book that I bought yesterday. That's perfectly natural in casual English. But notice something, you cannot usually remove who when it's the subject. So saying the man helped me isn't the same as the man who helped me, the word who is still doing an important job there.
That's why context matters. Don't worry about memorizing every grammar rule today. Focus on recognizing the pattern. The more English you hear, the more natural these choices will become. And here's another comment challenge for you. Write one sentence using who and another sentence using whose. We'll be reading the comments, and it's a great way to practice with other learners from around the world.
Let's wrap up this first section with a quick review. Use who for people, which for things, that for people or things in many everyday situations, and whose to show possession. Once these four jobs become clear, building longer and more natural English sentences becomes much easier. In the next section, we'll take these words into real conversations and show you how Americans actually use them every day.
Great job making it through the basics. Now it's time to level up. Knowing the rules is helpful, but the real goal is using these words naturally in everyday conversations. That's what native speakers do without even thinking about it. The more you hear these patterns in real situations, the more comfortable they'll become.
Exactly. In this section, we're going to move away from textbook examples and look at how people actually speak. We'll use situations like meeting new people, talking at work, chatting with friends, and even shopping or traveling. You'll notice that these little words help connect ideas and make your English sound smooth instead of choppy.
Let's imagine you're introducing a coworker. You could say, "This is Sarah, she works in marketing." That's perfectly correct. But a native speaker will often combine those ideas and say, "This is Sarah who works in marketing." One sentence sounds more connected and natural.
Here's another example. I met a man yesterday. He owns a coffee shop. Now combine them. I met a man who owns a coffee shop. That's exactly how conversations flow in real life.
Let's try a family example. My aunt lives in Texas. She makes the best cookies. Instead of saying two separate sentences, say, "My aunt who lives in Texas makes the best cookies." Doesn't that sound smoother?
Absolutely. Now let's switch to things. Imagine you're talking about your phone. Instead of saying, "I bought a new phone. It has a great camera," you can say, "I bought a new phone that has a great camera." Or, "I bought a new phone which has a great camera." Both are correct, but in everyday American English, you'll probably hear that more often.
Here's another everyday situation. You're recommending a restaurant. You might say, "There's a restaurant that serves amazing tacos," or "There's a restaurant which serves amazing tacos." Again, both work, but that sounds more conversational.
Now let's use whose because this word makes your English sound much more advanced. Imagine you're talking about your neighbor. My neighbor's son plays basketball. You can also say, my neighbor whose son plays basketball is really proud of him. Here's another one. I know a woman whose husband is a pilot. Notice how whose connects the owner with the thing that belongs to them.
Let's act out a short conversation. I'll start. I'm looking for a doctor who listens carefully.
I'd say I know someone who would be perfect.
Great, now another one. I'm trying to buy a laptop that isn't too expensive.
You should check the one that my brother bought last month.
Nice, now let's add whose. I met a family whose house overlooks the ocean.
Wow, I'd love to visit a place like that. See how natural those sentences sound.
They really do. Now let's talk about something learners often ask. When should I use which and when should I use that? Here's an easy answer. In casual American conversations, people often choose that. In more formal writing, business emails, academic papers, or books, you'll see which more frequently.
For example, imagine you're talking to your friend. The movie that we watched last night was hilarious. That's completely natural, but if you're writing a report, you might write, the movie, which received several awards, became an international success. The second sentence sounds a little more formal.
That doesn't mean you need to worry every time you speak. If you're having a casual conversation, using that is usually a safe and natural choice.
Here's another interesting point. Sometimes native speakers leave out that completely. Listen to this. This is the book I told you about. Instead of this is the book that I told you about, both sound natural. Americans do this all the time.
But remember, don't try removing who in the same way. For example, the woman who called me yesterday. You need who because it's introducing the person performing the action. Keeping who makes the sentence clear and easy to understand.
Let's practice with a few everyday situations. You're buying a car. I want a car that gets good gas mileage. You're choosing a hotel. We stayed at a hotel that had an amazing view. You're talking about a friend. I have a friend who always remembers birthdays. You're describing a teacher. I had a teacher whose classes were always interesting.
These are exactly the kinds of sentences you'll hear every day in American English. Whether you're talking with coworkers, classmates, neighbors, or friends, these words help connect your ideas naturally.
Let's compare formal and informal speech one more time. Formal, the conference which was held in Chicago attracted thousands of visitors. Informal, the conference that we went to was awesome. Formal, the professor whose research won an award gave a fantastic presentation. Informal, my friend has a teacher whose classes are really fun. Both styles are correct. The difference is simply the situation.
Now it's your turn to practice. Complete these sentences out loud. I know someone who, this is the game that, we visited a place which, I have a friend whose, don't worry if you need a few seconds to think. Speaking slowly is much better than not speaking at all.
Here's another challenge. Imagine you're introducing your best friend to someone new. Can you use who? Now describe your favorite restaurant using that. Next, describe your favorite book using which. Finally, tell us about someone whose job you admire. These small exercises build real speaking confidence.
Before we finish this section, here are 3 simple tips to remember. First, think about what you're talking about. Is it a person, a thing, or possession? Second, don't overthink the grammar while speaking. Focus on communicating your message clearly. Third, listen to native speakers. The more podcasts, movies, interviews, and conversations you hear, the more these patterns will become automatic. And here's another comment challenge for you. Write 1 sentence using that and 1 sentence using whose. Try to make them about your own life because personal examples are much easier to remember than random textbook sentences.
Excellent work. Let's review what we've learned in this section. We used who to describe people, that and which to connect ideas about things, and whose to show possession. We also saw the difference between formal and informal English and practiced using these words in everyday conversations. In the next section, we'll go even deeper with more practical situations, natural expressions, and tips that will help your English sound even more like a native speaker's.
Welcome back. So far, you've learned the basic rules and you've seen how these words work in everyday conversations. Now let's take one more step. In this section, we're going to focus on sounding more natural. Native speakers don't just know the grammar, they use these words automatically to make their conversations flow. That's exactly what we're going to practice now.
That's right. Think about how you speak in your own language. You probably don't stop to think about grammar every few seconds. You simply talk. That's our goal in English too. The more you practice using who, which, that, and whose in real situations, the less you'll think about the rules and the more confident you'll become.
Let's start with a common situation, meeting someone for the first time. Imagine your friend asks, "Who's that?" You could answer, "That's the neighbor who just moved in." Or, That's the coworker who helped me with my project. Notice how who quickly gives extra information about the person without making the sentence long or confusing.
Here's another situation. You're talking about your favorite cafe. You might say, there's a cafe that makes the best iced coffee. Or, there's a cafe that stays open until midnight. Those are exactly the kinds of sentences Americans use every day.
Now let's imagine you're talking about shopping. I finally bought the shoes that I wanted. My sister recommended the store that has really good prices. My parents found a couch that fits perfectly in their living room. These examples are simple, but they're incredibly useful because they're based on real life.
Let's make it a little more detailed. Imagine you're telling your friend about your vacation. We stayed at a hotel that overlooked the beach. The hotel, which was built over 50 years ago, had an amazing view. See the difference? The first sentence tells us exactly which hotel you're talking about. The second sentence simply adds extra information. You'll often hear which used this way in writing or more careful speech.
That's a great point. Here's another example. My brother bought a car that uses very little gas. The car, which is electric, is surprisingly quiet. Both sentences are correct, but they have slightly different purposes. One identifies the car, the other adds extra information about it.
Now let's spend a little more time with whose, because learners sometimes avoid using it even though it's very common. Imagine you're introducing your manager. This is my manager whose office is on the third floor. Or maybe you're talking about a friend. I have a friend whose family owns a bakery. Or this one. We met a musician whose songs became very popular online. Using whose makes your English sound smooth and advanced without being complicated.
Here's something interesting. Many learners try to avoid whose by making two separate sentences. For example, I have a friend, his sister is a doctor. That's correct, but native speakers often combine them. I have a friend whose sister is a doctor. Shorter, smoother, and much more natural.
Let's act out another conversation.
You're looking for an apartment. Okay, I'm searching for an apartment that has a balcony.
I'd probably answer, I know a building that has several available apartments.
Great, now let's imagine I'm looking for a tutor. I'm looking for someone who explains grammar clearly.
I actually know a teacher whose lessons are really easy to understand.
Perfect, that's exactly how these words appear naturally in conversation.
Here's another everyday situation. You're recommending a movie. The movie that we watched last weekend was fantastic. Your friend asks why. It tells the story of a family whose lives change overnight. Can you hear how naturally those ideas connect?
Absolutely, now let's talk about politeness. When you're speaking English, connecting your ideas makes you sound calmer and more confident. Instead of saying, I know a woman, she works at the bank, you can politely say, I know a woman who works at the bank. Instead of, I found a restaurant, it serves amazing seafood, you can say, I found a restaurant that serves amazing seafood. These little changes make a big difference.
And don't forget your tone. Even a perfectly correct sentence can sound unfriendly if you rush through it. Try speaking a little more slowly. Stress the important words, for example, I'm looking for someone who can help me. Or, I finally found a laptop that works really well. Clear pronunciation makes your English much easier to understand.
Let's do a quick mini practice together. I'll give you a situation and you think about which word fits best. Ready? Situation 1, you're talking about your grandmother. My grandmother is the person always encourages me. The answer is who, because we're talking about a person.
Situation 2, I bought a backpack is waterproof. The answer is that. You could also say which, but that is more common in everyday American English.
Situation 3, I have a classmate parents own a restaurant. The answer is whose, because we're talking about something that belongs to someone.
Situation 4, we visited a museum had an incredible dinosaur exhibit. The natural answer is that, again, which also works especially in writing, but you'll hear that more often in casual conversations.
Fantastic, you're getting faster already. Now here's a speaking challenge. Look around the room you're in right now. Can you make 3 sentences? Maybe, this is the chair that I use every day. I have a friend who loves reading. My neighbor is someone whose garden is beautiful. The more personal your examples are, the easier they'll be to remember. And here's another comment challenge. Tell us about one person you admire using who, or describe someone you know using whose. We always enjoy reading your examples, and you might inspire another learner too.
Before we finish this section, here's one final piece of advice. Don't try to sound perfect every time you speak. Focus on communicating clearly. If you accidentally use which instead of that, or need an extra second to choose who or whose, that's completely normal. Fluency grows through practice, not perfection. Keep speaking out loud, keep building longer sentences, and these words will soon become a natural part of your everyday English. That's the real structure to remember. Who connects people, that and which connect things, and who shows possession. Once you can recognize those four patterns, you'll sound smoother and much more confident in real conversations.
All right, before we finish today's lesson, let's talk about something that every English learner experiences, making mistakes. And honestly, we've both made grammar mistakes while learning other languages too. So if you've ever mixed up who, which, that, or whose, don't feel bad. It's completely normal. The important thing is understanding why a mistake happens so you can fix it the next time.
Exactly, today we're going to look at four very common mistakes. For each one we'll show you the incorrect sentence, the correct sentence, explain why, and then give you a chance to practice.
Let's start with mistake number 1. Some learners use which for people. Incorrect. The teacher which helped me was very kind. Correct. The teacher who helped me was very kind. Or in casual American English, the teacher that helped me was very kind. The reason is simple, which is generally used for things, not people. When you're talking about a person, who is usually the best choice.
Let's practice say these out loud. I know a woman works as a firefighter. The answer is, who, now try another one. The doctor treated my grandfather was wonderful. Again, who, if you're speaking casually, that also sounds natural.
Here's mistake number 2. Many learners forget to use whose when talking about possession. Listen to this. Incorrect. I have a friend whose car is electric. Correct. I have a friend whose car is electric. Why? Because the car belongs to the friend. Whenever something belongs to someone, whose is usually the correct word.
Here are two more examples. Incorrect. I met a man whose daughter is a lawyer. Correct. I met a man whose daughter is a lawyer. Incorrect. We visited a family whose house was huge. Correct. We visited a family whose house was huge. It's a small change, but it makes a big difference.
Now for mistake number 3. Some learners think they must always use which because it sounds more formal, but that's not how Americans usually speak. Imagine you're talking to a friend. This is the movie that I told you about. That sounds completely natural. You can say, this is the movie which I told you about. It's correct, but it feels a little more formal in everyday conversation.
So here's a simple tip. If you're chatting with friends, coworkers, or classmates, that is often the natural choice. If you're writing something formal, you'll probably see which more often. Both are correct. The situation simply changes which one sounds more natural.
Here's mistake number 4. Trying to use very short, disconnected sentences. For example, I bought a bicycle. It is very fast. That's correct, but native speakers often combine the ideas. I bought a bicycle that is very fast. Or, I bought a bicycle which is very fast. Connecting ideas makes your English sound smoother and more fluent.
Let's compare a few more. Short, my neighbor is friendly. He always smiles. Natural, my neighbor is someone who always smiles. Short, I found a restaurant. It serves amazing pizza. Natural, I found a restaurant that serves amazing pizza. Can you hear the difference?
Here's a funny example. Imagine someone says, I have a dog whose name is Max. Native speakers will probably understand you, but they'll immediately notice something sounds strange. The natural sentence is, I have a dog whose name is Max. Little changes like this make your English sound much more polished. And remember, everyone makes mistakes. Even native speakers sometimes stop, correct themselves, and keep talking. Fluency isn't about being perfect. It's about communicating your ideas confidently.
Let's do one last practice for this section. Choose the correct word. The student won the prize. Who or which? The answer is who. I bought a backpack holds my laptop. That or who? The answer is that. I met a woman. Brother is an engineer. Who or whose? The answer is whose. Excellent work. You're making real progress.
Now it's time for our favorite part of the lesson, interactive practice. Here's how it works. I'll give you 2 sentences. Pause for a second, choose the one that sounds natural, and then
We'll explain the answer. Don't worry if you get one wrong. That's how learning happens. Ready? Let's begin. Situation 1. Option A, I know a girl which plays the piano. Option B, I know a girl who plays the piano. Which one is correct? The answer is option B because we're talking about a person, we use who.
Situation 2. Option A, this is the phone that I bought yesterday. Option B, this is the phone who I bought yesterday. Which one sounds right? It's option A, phones are things, so that is the natural choice.
Situation 3. Option A, I have a friend whose parents own a restaurant. Option B, I have a friend whose parents own a restaurant. The answer is option A because we're showing possession.
Situation 4. Option A, we visited a museum that was fascinating. Option B, we visited a museum who was fascinating. The correct answer is option A, museums are things, not people.
Situation 5. Option A, the man who fixed my car did a great job. Option B, the man which fixed my car did a great job. The answer is option A again, we're talking about a person.
Fantastic, now let's make these sentences sound a little different. Instead of saying, I have a friend who lives in California, you could also say, I've got a friend who lives in California. both are natural. One sounds slightly more casual.
Here's another variation. Formal, the report which was completed yesterday has been submitted. Casual, the report that we finished yesterday is ready. Both are correct. Choose the style that matches the situation.
Now it's your turn to create your own examples. Can you make one sentence using who, one with that, and one with whose? Say them out loud first, then write them in the comments. We'd love to read them, and practicing with your own life makes these grammar patterns much easier to remember.
Remember, real conversations aren't about choosing the fanciest grammar. They're about expressing your ideas clearly and naturally. If people understand you and your sentences flow smoothly, you're already doing an amazing job. Keep practicing a little every day, speak out loud whenever you can, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how confident English speakers are made.
Wow, we covered a lot today. If you've been listening from the beginning, give yourself a pat on the back because you've just learned one of the most useful grammar topics in everyday English. Remember, our goal wasn't to memorize a long list of grammar rules. Our goal was to help you understand how native English speakers naturally use who, which, that, and whose in real conversations. Once you start noticing these words in movies, podcasts, TV shows, and daily conversations, you'll realize they're everywhere.
Absolutely, let's do one final review together. We learned 3 main ideas today. First, who is mainly used for people. Whenever you're talking about a person and adding more information, who is usually your best choice. Second, that and which are used for things, places, animals, and ideas, but in everyday American English, that is often the more natural choice in casual conversations. Third, who shows possession. If something belongs to someone, whose is the word you're looking for. Keeping those 3 ideas in mind will help you build smoother and more natural sentences every day.
And here's something we'd really like you to remember. Don't let grammar make you afraid to speak. Every fluent English speaker started somewhere and every learner makes mistakes. The difference is that confident learners keep talking, keep listening, and keep improving one conversation at a time. So if you accidentally say which instead of that, or pause for a second before choosing who or whose, that's completely okay. What matters most is that you're communicating and gaining confidence every time you practice.
Before we say goodbye, here's a little challenge for you. Over the next 24 hours, try to use each of today's 4 words at least once in a real sentence. Maybe describe someone in your family using who, talk about something you own using whose, recommend a movie using that, or describe your favorite place using which. The more you use these words in your own life, the faster they'll become part of your everyday English.
We'd also love to hear from you. Tell us in the comments which word used to confuse you the most, who, which, that, or whose, and then write one original sentence using that word. If you see another learner's comment, encourage them or reply with your own example. Learning together is one of the best parts of this amazing Talk Fluent community, and your comments help everyone practice real English.
If you enjoyed today's lesson and found it helpful, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, share it with a friend who's learning English, and subscribe to Talk Fluent so you never miss a new episode. Every week we bring you practical English lessons, natural conversations, useful vocabulary, grammar made simple, and expressions that Americans actually use in daily life. Our goal is to help you sound confident, comfortable, and natural every time you speak English.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. We know you have many ways to study English, and we're grateful that you chose to learn with us. Keep listening, keep speaking out loud, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself. Every conversation is another step toward becoming a more confident English speaker, and we're excited to be part of that journey with you.
Thanks again for joining us here on Talk Fluent. Keep practicing, keep challenging yourself, and remember that progress comes from consistency, not perfection. Have an amazing day, take care, and we'll be back very soon with another practical English lesson. See you next time.